Hello and welcome back to my GTNH playthrough. It is Monday, August 3rd, and we're just kind of over here floating. So I just came off the weekend, and honestly, over the weekend, got one main thing done, and that was crafting and setting up the first of my Aya harmonies over here. This guy is just tier 1 all around. Honestly, the crafting of this was probably more painful than it should have been, only because of the condensate hatch. Otherwise, the thing is surprisingly small. I think just because all the other new multi-blocks, I don't know how new they are, but I know at one point the iHarmony was like the big bad multi-block at the end of the pack, but now all these things are all so massive that kind of make this guy feels kind of small in comparison, but I did get it crafted. What I ended up doing to craft it is, if we hop over here, save a little fly time, over to this condensate hatch area, or well, the condensate line as I'm calling it. I know it's like the Einstein boss, but what I ended up having to do was all of these I've talked about before are set up to represent like each recipe that's currently in here. And instead of just letting it run on its own, I have all these switches turned off right now. And I would just manually turn them on to allow the recipe to run up there once I knew for a fact this has been running long enough to allow condensate to get in there, and then not let it ever run on its own and have any like weird things. I still did end up having a couple resets where I needed to have things going on, but ultimately it worked relatively well. It just made it a whole lot more manual than it usually needed to be. There's also one other weird glitch, but I kind of was able to drill it down so if we look at the rough wave focus, right? If I try to request 64 of these, press start, use the little thing to let it start. Come over here, you type in condensate. It does have the issue when it's by itself. Weird. Okay. Well, it's not quite what I thought it was. But basically, I'm having an issue where even though condensate is not part of this guy's recipe tree, like if we look at the pattern here, condensate, like there's nothing in it that is like actually calling for condensate. But for whatever reason, specifically this rough wave focus, when you call for too many of them, which you need a decent amount for the Aya Harmony, it like overrides the recipe. It almost feels like it's using what's it called, like the NEI recipe, where it has these condensate, but only specifically for chromatic glass and not these two, than like the recipe that I have. Now I'm realizing it. I didn't realize this specific item had a assembly line. I think, realistically, if I go to craft another Eye of Harmony, I might use this more expensive recipe, at least until going to another version of the pack, just to make my life a little easier, because obviously if it's calling for an item that can't actually be crafted, it can't complete, and just another pain in the butt for it. The only thing that kind of sucks for that is the thing that's calling for more of on the assembly lines, the gravitational lens, and that has to go through the black hole thing, which, while I'm shorter on space-time, also has, I wouldn't say problems. It's working as intended, but it won't fire off, which is this guy that knew the extra arguments I put in here only work if this guy is full of space-time, which it is now, but when I was crafting a ton of stuff, it was struggling. So I might need to adjust the limit on that tank back there to let it run sooner than I have it before. But ultimately, with a little bit of manual input, did get the Eye of Harmony crafted. I got this guy set up, I want to say, like 8 or 9 p.m. Saturday. It was pretty late in the day Saturday, but still Saturday. And it's been running ever since. I haven't shut down the server at all or had anything goofy going on. And you see, over that period of time, I only have 9,216 liters of white dwarf matter. Obviously, this thing's really slow with base stats, as this one is. Like, it's a tier 1 all around, with a overworld in there. 1,800 per recipe, which is 5 hours. So little slow. I did notice, however, I didn't notice, however, that I could have basically gone right away for these more advanced ones because there's nothing in here. Like the nanite tier's fine. The what's it called? The power requirement also perfectly fine. Like I should have just gone for these for the first one instead, made it a little faster right off the bat. But since the overworld one only makes white dwarf matter, I'm probably going to build a second one, have this guy keep running and work on grabbing some upgrade casings, and then build a second one relatively fast to get the black dwarf matter, because it looks like it's going to like lock progression here. I am kind of tempted to try out one of the daily versions. I saw a daily, I think it was 460 or 660. I'd have to check the Discord. It seems to have the condensate hatch working, but I've seen like other issues on there, so I don't know. We'll see what I end up doing ultimately for it. But to actually get this short guy running, I originally had a different idea for how to do it than what the wiki has, but I'm glad I looked at it first because with how long this thing takes to run, I think my idea would have gone badly, and the wiki's idea is pretty straightforward. So just before I go over the wiki's way of doing this is it's got 2 input hatches, and what it's requiring in the case of the overworld, if we just type this over here for overworld. Whoops. I wonder what this backpack is. Interesting. If you look at this here, it wants to run 1 billion hydrogen and 1 billion helium specifically. If you input too much of one of these fluids, it'll add a penalty. Now, my thought was run a fluid regulator in here, like in steps of like 100,000 or something, and then just have it run, like use either a timer or run off the machine state and hope it all worked out. But the way fluid regulators sometimes seem to mess up on me, or if you have like a hiccup in TPS for a second can mess up, I feel like it would have turned into a frustrating this thing failing more. The way the wiki does it, which is pretty clever, and it's very simple to set up, is so you essentially use 2 fluid storage cells. They're both partitioned, one to hydrogen, one to helium. And then in addition to that, if we hit shift here, you can actually set the cell to only be allowed to hold 1 billion, which is, this is why I'm glad I looked at the wiki. I would not have come up with this myself because I didn't realize you could do this. There's a few other puzzles earlier on that I feel like this might have been helpful for, but I didn't realize you could do a max resources on here. So essentially what we got going on is, so the white network is the main network, like I always do. I do have the fluids going right out of the main network. The dust that come out of the recipe, I have just going over to the storage cells I have set up over in ore processing. I originally had this set up to the main network, and then luckily I thought about it before I started just dumping millions of items into it that don't need to be there. I already have digital singularities for all the desks set up over there. But anyway, so this IO port is set up to the main network, and then this guy is set up to go from network to cell. So an empty cell comes in here, fills up with the network, tries to fill it up to the max with whatever it is. And in this case, operation mode moved to output when the cell is full. So it'll kick the cells over here. Then we have a activity detector on the main controller, which is set to output if the machine is idle. So once the recipe finishes, gives a redstone signal. this guy is set to extract with signal. So these cells will move over to this one, which is moves items from the cell to the network. Then these guys are set up over here with storage buses that are partitioned to be helium and hydrogen. So it outputs its 1 billion of each one into this guy. And then this one is set to extract only without signal. So we don't end up with like a loop here. It's real convenient. So the cells will move here, and while the machine is actually idle, it's outputting this redstone signal, so it can't remove these cells back over to this in and out port to like have it loop. This one only outports while it's running. This one only exports while it's idle. And yeah, and then that's all you really need to do. You throw the this input bus has to be in here for the machine to form, but all it needs is the overworld here to have it running. And like I said, pretty straightforward. This whole setup's pretty clever. Like I said, if you know how to partition and stuff, you just do it in a cell workbench, and yeah, it's pretty straightforward to get running. Now, like I said, I'll probably upgrade the casings on this one pretty fast because the base recipe chance is pretty abysmal, base recipe chance is perfectly fine. The overworld's 100%. It's the base time. I was playing around with the calculator earlier. I don't know what casings I'll go with immediately. I know I can't go higher than tier 4 because these ones start requiring. Well, this one requires white dwarf matter nanites, so I would need to craft some of those and throw it over into the condensate line. And then the ones that are even higher require black dwarf matter, so you need to get a second harmony set up anyways. Now, the other fluid that you get exclusively from here is finally we have access to the stellar plasma mixture. See, I have the 800,000, so it's run 8 cycles. You get 100,000 per cycle. But I haven't set up anything with this yet. I haven't decided what I want to start using with it first. And since I'm just kind of, while I was messing around with crafting all these casings, I was just going through the quest book and knocking out older quests that I'd kind of let get out of control. The only reason the HV one's done is I still haven't claimed the personal dimension. And then, yeah, we're all the way up to UHV, which this has the first Stargate, which we do have crafted. And then I just gotta go through and craft some things down here to finish out this tab. But yeah, that's this guy for now. I'll be working on throughout the week a second Eye of Harmony with better casings to start getting black dwarf matter, as well as upgrade this guy. But in the meantime, a few other random things. So if we fly back over this way, I guess I could have shut this off before I flew back and forth. I did finally come in here and upgrade the Forge of the Gods to get the second ring on it. Now, I haven't made any changes to these rings. I did start messing around with the Heliofusion exerciser. I thought I was being clever and got stocking input buses for everything. Basically, this guy has a logic puzzle where it calls for these expected inputs, but then the inputs are like the different things in the recipes that don't match this, and apparently it wants specific amounts again, so it probably has to do with some partition cells and stuff again, but this doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So, and I think it's these outputs are supposed to then correspond to inputs in here, but I don't know which ones are supposed to be which and in what amounts or how to get all this to work. So this is something for me to still figure out right now. I was playing with it for a little bit earlier and it was making me feel dumb, and then I had to do like real work. So this will be sometime tomorrow or the next day. I'll figure this guy out and get it running to start getting it's like, what is it called? Degenerate quark gluon plasma, which then you can use to start making cheaper Ragnar, and I think that's kind of basically it. Stargate stuff, and yeah, just little things. I don't think you actually have to do it, but the that fluid would be a decent amount cheaper. To despite my energy being red, just a quick note, this antimatter is great. You can see I've been running the Eye of Harmony, and if you remember from Friday, I was actually losing a lot of power. Well, this guy wasn't set up because I was finally like pushing past where my Dyson swarms could handle. Now, and the only reason this all the hours in red is because I didn't realize it actually wiped my settings from my level maintainer, so I didn't have UMV superconductor coming into this guy. But you see, I've nearly doubled my power since Friday, and that's with me running the antimatter at very conservatively. I'm nearly up to 39 million in here, so I could be running this higher to get more power, but at the moment I'm just letting that build up till I get to a point that I'm comfortable with fluids and I can just go crazy with these three. Because right now they're set to an input of 1280 or 12,800, excuse me. Whereas if everything was ideal and I was keeping up with fluids, it would be closer to 40,000. I can't remember the exact number, but way more power. So this is just conservatively running, and like I said, I'm gaining. I nearly double power since Friday, and obviously Saturday I started having the Eye of Harmony running, so still power positive with all that said and done. For the rest of the week though, or like just kind of short-term goals, like I said, the other Eye of Harmony, the other thing I want to do more sooner than later is start spamming max tier QFTs. I do have one crafting right now. I actually had never set up the space-time bending cores before. So right now it's actually nearly done. In a few minutes, it'll be done. And I was laying out the spacing because obviously these guys are like a mix of tier 1 through 4. So I'm wall sharing where I can, but like you have instances like this where it's not wall shared. I want to kind of like the compact reactors, start crafting one or two of these a night, just as the base gets faster, crafting more, and just making it like a daily routine to set up another QFT. And then I'm going to start from this direction. I use the red cobblestone here to make sure I'm laying out in the right spot, and then start getting these all maxed out and just get with like digital singularities and all that jazz. Same with two, since I don't have an Eye of Harmony crafting anymore, I did go back to starting to craft even more compact reactors. I thought I was going to craft more last night, but I ran out of enriched Nequardia. So, Nequata, it's not Nequardia. So that was what kind of inspired the delve into this. As you can see, I've got my third neutron accelerator set up, and this one's got the enriched Nequata, excuse me, going through it, because whatever this last QFT down here is the one that I'd crafted last week and then just kept forgetting that I had sitting over to chest somewhere. So this guy's get me enriched Nequata, runs into this guy, which gets you molten enriched Nequata, and then I've swapped all my recipes to be able to handle that, because now we are swimming in enriched Nequata, so that problem's taken care of. So I'll be able to craft a bunch of compact reactors, amongst other things. And yeah, we'll just kind of go from there. Aside from working on casings and deciding whether I want to risk updating to daily, I'll just kind of keep plugging away at making the base faster and more efficient. But anyways, if you have any questions or thoughts about any of this stuff, let me know. And I hope you had a good day, and I appreciate you watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.